In U.S. public schools, over 50% of students have faced traumatic experiences, and 1 in 6 students struggle with complex trauma. Trauma has serious negative consequences for the educational and social outcomes of students. But wait, what actually is trauma? Although trauma is universal, there's no universal definition for trauma, because traumatic experiences vary so vastly. Instead, trauma is in the eye of the beholder, because what might be traumatic for one person may not be traumatic for the next. However, for now, we can most easily understand trauma as an experience of an event as it happens to an individual, in which the individual's ability to integrate their emotional experience is overwhelmed. Trauma can also impact the makeup of students' brains. The effects of traumatic experiences cause high levels of stress in the brain that can physically inhibit a child's capacity to learn. The survival-based alarm system that lives within the mammalian area of the brain, composed of the amygdala and hippocampus, which produce fight or flight responses, causes toxically stressed brains to be resistant to learning. This happens because when students recall traumatic experiences and don't feel safe, the amygdala releases lots of cortisol that chemically deactivates the prefrontal cortex, which is in charge of behavior planning and memory. Subsequently, the destimulated prefrontal cortex cannot send new information to the hippocampus to organize short-term memory into learning. The ability of the brain to retain new information is then compromised. The more frequently this process happens, short-term reactive behavior becomes the student's conditioned, permanent response. You've probably already seen the effects of trauma in the form of challenging behavior from students in your own classroom. Students either have a hypervigilant response to toxic stress, which results in acting out behaviors like emotional outbursts, aggression in the form of conflicts with students and staff, and hyperactivity, which can lead to frequent class interruptions. Or students have an inadequate response to toxic stress, which results in extreme withdrawal, often looking like spacing out or inattention to class instruction, failure to complete assignments at home and at school, and social isolation from peers. While trauma has negative effects on learning, learning can also undo the negative effects of trauma, and that's where you as educators can step in to help your students succeed. Because students spend so much time in schools, educational settings are key for mitigating and reversing the effects of trauma. You have the opportunity to completely rewire students' brains by helping them develop trusting relationships and healthy and consistent habits. Usually, trauma and toxic stress cause an emotional skills deficit, leading to challenging behavior in the classroom, which educators who are not fully aware of the dynamics of trauma may understandably label as mere misbehavior, prompting them to respond punitively. Many traditional disciplinary measures in schools remove the students from the classroom, which exacerbates the trauma-enforced learning gap that's already putting the student behind their peers. With sufficient training, educators like you can step in before students' challenging behavior results in punishments that exacerbate the trauma students face. We believe in equipping all educators with trauma-sensitive disciplinary alternatives that not only support resilience, but also allow teachers to set clear boundaries and explicit behavioral expectations for their students. The Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, passed by Barack Obama, is the main piece of U.S. education policy. However, it does not mention the word trauma once. ESSA is up for reauthorization in Congress for the upcoming 2020-2021 school year, and we urge all educators to support an amendment to ESSA that will address trauma by requiring all schools to include trauma-informed training in their professional development requirements. Mental health professionals will facilitate the training to school staff, and all attendees and facilitators will be compensated for their time. You will leave the training with tools you can use in your own classrooms to better support your students affected by trauma and improve your classroom environments to make your teaching experience more enjoyable. Schools that have already adopted trauma-informed policies and trainings for staff have seen fewer interruptions in the classroom, fewer instances of student-teacher and student-student conflicts, more instructional time for educators, higher graduation rates, increased attendance, and all around more positive school environments. It's extremely important to insert this amendment now, especially because the upcoming school year is on the heels of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has without doubt caused new traumatic experiences for students. At-home learning, stay-at-home orders, and economic effects of the pandemic have put a lot of students back into the face of trauma caused by family dysfunction and poverty, which will have negative effects on their educational achievement and behavioral patterns in the next year and for years to come, if nothing is done now to support them in schools. Not only would the proposed amendment improve students' educational experiences, but it would also help you reconnect with the beautiful parts of teaching that the pandemic has robbed you of, including building lasting connections with students, creating positive classroom experiences, and successfully engaging all students in your curriculum. We're calling on all educators to come together from home by signing our petition to support the ESSA amendment and show your representatives in Congress that students and teachers deserve more support. Become the student to help the students. And sign the petition if you want to learn trauma-informed practices today for a better classroom next fall. We urge you to click the link below to join the movement.